Hello, Miss Christie. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Can you see us?
I cannot see you.
Okay, that might just take a moment.
Right.
Princess Leia is up on the screen.
He's my doppelganger. Oh, it looks like it's transitioning.
Well, I just stopped. I'm going to start again.
Is that what you did earlier? You just waited and then it popped up?
Yes. Although you did see a button on the right-hand side with the 3 dots.
I did. And it says stop video, which means there you are. You're on.
All right.
Oh, only Paulina's there.
That is correct. And Justine.
Yes, of course, Miss Justine. Hello.
I think they added 20 pounds because they put me closer. I'm sure that's a distorted view.
That's what Carrie said. Are we all gonna look fat? It all looks very small. So any visitors would be on the right side?
Yeah, well, actually, our screen will get smaller as more people come in. The squares will get
Oh,
smaller.
there's RJ.
Yeah, see how we just kind of got shoved up there? And there goes RJ.
Oh, he disappeared.
Right.
Is that a bird outside your window?
Yeah, well, it's actually hardly, you can hear it. It's pretty loud. That microphone must be really good.
He's really loud.
Yeah, we can hardly hear it. And you sound great. Can you still hear us?
Oh my gosh, here comes Rita.
Oh.
We didn't just say you were gonna go. Yeah.
We should have courtesy called.
I told Carrie,
Yeah. And
I saw Brent yesterday. I'm pretty sure it might have come up.
hello, Rita.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, we're at City Hall.
Well, once again, I'm left out of the loop, so it's all right.
The question was asked at the last meeting. I believe Dan said, when are we going to meet at City Hall? And Chad and I said Tuesday.
Oh. Should I be there?
That would be wonderful.
I'll be there in 4 minutes. All right, here I go. Bye.
As long as traffic's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, please. All right.
You gotta love small towns. I'll be there in 4 minutes.
Okay. This could work in the future for people that just want to attend and look at what things as we're going to be here in the future. So we can do a city council meeting and still take testimony from Zoom.
Have you had any more chats with Bob about using the big room?
Where is it?
Where's what?
Let's do it for keys. So Rita, you're still online if you want to shut that down. There we go. Nope. Can't see names very well.
I can't see that person's name. John Cockcroft, maybe?
John Crawford.
Crawford.
Hello, John.
Hello,
Good to see you.
how are you, Chad? It's the only one I recognize there.
Here we got Madam Mayor Polina Cochran
Hi.
Hello, how do you do?
and our treasurer Justine.
How do you do?
Hi.
And then one person here now is Councillor Carrie Smith.
Hello?
That's John Crawford.
John is the president of the Palisades Homeowners Association.
Okay.
Are you still in town, John? Have you stayed?
Say again?
Have you stayed in town this entire time pretty well?
Still didn't get that.
Are
Let
you
me turn
here-
this up.
Are you here in Gerhard or are you in Portland?
Well, yeah, I'm spending most of my time here.
Everyone else? Good.
I'm going up to
I don't
Portland.
need to mask. I'm fully vaccinated.
I'm vaccinated too, but is everyone else in the room?
No,
Then I guess I need to be masked.
Well, I've got my mask on, I'm protecting.
I know, but
I'm one shot.
I am medically fragile. So I'm not,
Copy that.
I may be.
If I was within 6 feet of probably either of you, I would mask them.
Mhm. Well, I don't know how long I can keep it on. It's so damn hot.
Start this way and then move on if we need to, I suppose.
It's always back up to the flag.
Tonight I can go right here. Oh, wait, there's no wind. Today doesn't want to be windy.
We could have put the air scrubber in.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
So are the rest of them gonna show here?
Rita's on the way.
Rita was there, but
I'm gonna
she
make some phone calls.
is here now. She's pulled in.
Because the way yeah, sorry, it's all good. See, have you been hungry or something?
I was making notes to myself. Do you see Rita's whole list?
No, I haven't gotten.
That came this
He has an email?
Sorry, I'm late.
Where's my name? Where I sit?
We have you over there.
Oh, they do.
Hi, Carrie.
Rita? Peter? Blue?
Hi.
Wow, in real life. Well,
I actually exist.
So is everybody gonna wear their masks? Is that?
Well, I brought it
Well, you're inoculated, right?
fully.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, John.
Are you? You are.
Yes. But
No, he just came.
there's, Chad isn't, and
Chad isn't?
And Justine's partially.
Yeah, I'm not.
Justine's
All right.
one shot away from being.
Just a shot away.
Okay, we'll see you soon. No, 6 o'clock.
Well, the time changed.
Do you normally have a spot?
I normally sit there.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were coming in today.
The mayor invited me, and I was like, well, how can I refuse?
Beautiful day.
It is.
Share this here.
Hey,
Peter, are you inoculated?
I have both shots and over a month, and I got my shots in Cook County, so I'm hoping for that lottery money.
Okay, so Chad, you're not?
I'm not.
Okay, go to that end and Peter, go beside Rita, please.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I want distance.
That's fine.
well, that is
Then I can take my mask off.
excellent engineering.
Thank you. Now, the only thing I have to worry about is that counter there.
All the counselors are fully vaccinated.
I don't know. I have
They
to
are, I've
ask.
asked.
Well, see, I did ask, and I will ask, because
That's why.
And how are you?
decided we could go.
I think seeing you on
Okay.
screen. You were much more affable.
Was that?
Yeah. Just thought to let you know.
I like being on the screen, it makes me look like I have more hair. I can get the angle just right, and it's, oh, he's doing pretty well.
Yes, and I look taller.
Yeah, as long as they don't shoot me from the back, and they still look like I have.
Rita, can you hear me? Can you see your name still on the screen here? Did you leave your computer on?
No, I exited the meeting and turned my computer off.
It thinks you're still here. Do you want me to dismiss you?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm not going home.
No.
You can do
It's
it.
fine. I'm just gonna remove it since you're not on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brent is on his way, Danny is on his way.
Thank you.
This I just
Seems reasonable.
made up.
Right.
I mean, not really, I took, the task on. Over the day, I had no idea. Sheet. These are the total prescription. Okay. And I haven't distributed any of that. That's for everything. Right, talk about that. Sure.
Right.
Did get news today that we're of course staying low.
Yeah.
2-week case count was 10 people. The last 14 days, so that's good.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna quit getting the alerts on my phone. So maybe we could just plan, like, I know when Christy sent out the emails that say the date, this date, she said 6:30. That's what I had in my calendar. So maybe we could just agree 6 PM for anything that's not a regular meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
we could, as long as things keep going. Dan liked 7 o'clock because he was working up until the point. But being on the phone was a lot easier for him to do. Plus he was going back and forth to Washington.
Hey, Chad.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think what happened is that originally this was a work session and all of the work sessions are at 6:30. And then when you needed a decision, we changed it to a special council meeting. So then we moved it earlier.
no,
That we'll just double our efforts a few days before and make sure that we
Yeah,
give everybody a call, another email.
copy.
probably phone calls and text messages. I always hated having to do that.
What's that?
I always hated having to call, doctors, London, the executive committee. Really?
Well, we got a load of volunteers here. I mean, there's only so much you can do to pay to receive it. Hello, Brad. Hello there.
I don't have Zoom installed.
Right there.
Well, this is like welcome to you.
Yeah, so. And Daniel was going to be here in just a few moments. He was at home.
Well, my apologies. I looked at the thing and I saw 7 o'clock, but now I see it's 6. I guess I was looking at the last week's meeting.
I did the same thing. I clicked and then I realized it was July that I did. And so then I went on the blog and saw it was 6.
And page 6 is scatters.
I corrected that. I said it wrong. the wrong version. It's because I was dealing with some very interesting issues, and the day that I was finalizing that, I was dealing with some very interesting issues in another jurisdiction. And so I thought of that jurisdiction as I was putting the signature line on. The rest of that is it.
Hey, Dan, right over there, sir.
Welcome,
Greetings. Hello, Dan.
good to see you.
In one piece.
I don't know that we've met.
Right. We have, but it's been large groups, and
And
I have
virtual.
one of those faces that kind of blends into everybody else.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the June 8th, 2021 special council meeting for the city of Gerhart to order at 6:10, it looks like. And is there any declaration of any conflict of interest? No, and I want to say welcome to our visitors. We're attending virtually, and we are down here at City Hall. The first item of business is ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 962, a budget category transfer from the general fund appropriations. Chad, you want to describe this?
Certainly. And then I'll do a brief description based off of the synopsis. And then questions can go both to Justine and I. But essentially, the council approved the 2020-21 budget last year and had some unforeseen circumstances. So categories within the general fund will have higher than anticipated expenditures, which require an appropriation to move between existing categories. Explanations for the needed transfers include an increased need for building permit inspections, the staffing transitions, emergency deployment in the fire department, increased expenditures due to COVID-19 relief within the general fund, and they can be redistributed by resolution. It's ideal to have all fund appropriations finalized prior to the start of the new fiscal year, July 1, 2020. What Justine has provided for us is the framework for the resolution 962, which also on the second page of that resolution shows exactly the adjustments and changes that we are looking to make. One of the areas, just to note, at the very bottom of that page, you'll see the appropriations. The existing were $2,004,500, and we are still remaining at $2,004,500 for the general fund last year. We're just moving the funds around as they are available in funds that we did not overspend into funds that we did overspend. So we have, you can resolve, transfer those appropriations as specified, or do nothing.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we transfer the money specified in resolution 962.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Planning is taking a big hit. Is it that we over budgeted for the current and now we're taking her down by almost half?
Correct.
That's just a big cut, and I just wondered what the explanation was.
Well, the budgeting we put in there was depending on how far we got with the High Point Station. I wanted to make sure that the planning section category was robust. Turns out we didn't need as much time and energy in that category.
Because we were looking at potentially having a series of related actions that we would need to take, both as far as annexation and vacation and things of that nature went. And so that was of course before we had this other opportunity.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question about the building department. gaining another 55,000. He gets 75%, so why is it that we're giving him another 55,000? Is it just bookkeeping?
We were over in our revenue by a large amount, so he does get 75% of that revenue that we bring in.
Right.
So our revenue offsets that expense, but we still have to change the categories up in the.
Just to make your bookkeeping. It's not we're giving him another $55,000 for other.
No, it's what he's already taken in as far as revenue.
Okay.
This isn't an additional amount, this is what we actually work for already.
Okay, and it's just your bookkeeping, right? I just want to be clear that we're not, here's a purse, please open it and take whatever you want.
We did anticipate the rest of this month also. So we kind of took an average, Justine and I worked on that, took an average of what his next billing cycle will likely be, and made sure that was covered also.
Okay.
And that's included in this appropriation.
Correct.
How many new dwellings have we permitted this fiscal year?
I don't have that number handy.
Okay. Because that's going to, I suspect when the census comes out that we're going to need to take another look at our, I know it just seems like we looked at our housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory, but based on the numbers that I was hearing from earlier this year and the amount of activity that seems to be going on, for Portland State to say we're going to have 70, we were going to have a need for 70 dwelling units over the next 50 years, looks like maybe they were off.
Will they do that again? Meaning, will they relook at it, or do we have to pay a consultant, or how does that work?
So, I hope that we don't have to bring in consultants to do it. The way they estimated the need was they looked at the 2000 to 2010 numbers, and then they kind of looked at the past 11 to 17. And the problem with both of those data sets is that you had 3-year periods at the end of one, 3-year period at the beginning of the other, where there wasn't a lot of activity. And I think if they were to do, I think that if you were to look at the last 3 years as compared to like the prior 20, it would be higher. But again, if they're trying to, I think the last 3 years were probably over 70 dwellings already. And so the assumptions they built into their model need to be revisited, but they don't want to look at that until we actually have the census number. So that will allow us. But like I represent a jurisdiction that has more registered voters in it than their population estimate, which was my evidence for them that their population estimate was wrong. But yeah, so I think once we have that census data, that will allow us to go back to them for a true up.
I think when we had the presentation, he did explain some of that. I took copious notes. I was like, I mean, he pretty much laid out the process, and it is, we can ask for it. And of course, if we have more data, all the better.
Right, the other piece is that our shared revenue is based on Portland State population estimates. So if that's well below the actual, then what that means practically is unless they're well below the actual across the board, across the state, then we're not getting the amount of money that we would be entitled to. So that's another reason it makes sense to go to them and say, hey, you need to look at your numbers again, because these are the real numbers.
And Mayor and Council, the framework is there. We did a lot of work over the last couple of years on this. So any new changes or updates that we need to do this shouldn't be quite the task as it was.
Before we get too far off track, are you ready to call a question?
No, I have a question about the monies for the fire department. Has that been worked out yet?
No, it hasn't. We're very, very close. We are looking like we're going to have a draft of the audit potentially by the end of this week. Is that correct, Justin?
Correct.
And that is the next project. Along with that we figure all these numbers out. We know we're close. It's just getting them down to exactly what they are is what we're working.
Okay.
It's been a lot of work, and Justine's been working on the audit.
So the draft audit, then Justine, will you then be taking a look at that for accuracy and?
Yeah, they're still requesting data, the auditors, they don't have all of the information. I got another request today. And I'm just slow gathering it because I'm not, that familiar with the systems and the boxes that you have to go and find them in. But we really need to get that done. So they'll send a financial draft, so an audit draft for us to look at, see if that makes sense. See if those numbers look right, and then they'll finalize the audit. But we have to have the audit before we do the refinancing. It's all of these pieces together.
Okay. Any more questions?
I just have a little one. So the increased expenditures to COVID-19 relief, is that part of the non-departmental numbers? Ever you put it?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. So we're gonna move on to new business, excuse me, I skipped visitors. Our visitors are virtual. Bob Maury, would you like to speak? If so, unmute.
I am unmuting. Thank you. I don't want to speak, but I do want to listen. So I appreciate all your time and I look forward to listening tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, would you like to make a comment? We're at the visitor section.
No comments.
Christy, I'm gonna need some help on the two callers and the person that's on my top right.
So I see Sarah.
Yes.
Would you like to comment?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Darcy.
I have no comments, but thank you.
And then, phone number area code 303 ending in 450.
Sharon Klepfer, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
And the last phone number is area code 503, last three digits 601.
That's Sandy Adams, and I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, at this time, we will move on to new business. And the first item is fire station timeline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. In order to put this project together for the potential new site, we have some timelines we have to meet, and those are at the very top of this. The three of them is a resolution to refer to the voters, also a submission of paperwork to the county, and then the November election. Those three items are driving the timelines that are below for three different areas that we have decided we need to accomplish in order to bring the visitors, your residents, the counselors and staff with the best information to move forward with a potential new site at Highlands Lane. There's three categories of that we need to take care of. The planning, the engineering, and then also kind of off the engineering is the geotech work. The reason to do these things is this is a new site. with potential for new geotech information on how the dunes are set up. It's also a new site as far as size goes and how we would be able to lay out a building. And then we also have a quite a detailed planning effort that we're going to need to go through throughout this entire process, but at least to get started prior to the August 13th date and through all the way to the November election. The key points for us to get to the 13th in order to have good pricing for this project is the architecture and the engineering and the geotech work. Because of the changes in this location, I think that there might be a benefit cost savings, but it's also a different animal in regards to access, highway, and that sort of thing. So what we're proposing, we've worked with a few different organizations to try to come up with the best timeline and make sure some people were available. We've laid it out here all the way through almost to November. So would you like me to go through each one of the services to kind of describe what some of these things are? Or is it fairly evident? It's also in the synopsis that I sent. The data.
Chad, I understand what the blue, all the blue means. What does the symbol red X mean?
That's generally a meeting, whether it be a meeting with staff, council, and or the public.
And the double X?
That's just important dates that, for example, the resolutions refer to voters. It would have to be before we're due, that the ballot title is due. And then, of course, the November election.
And you have nothing down for budget preparation. Does that mean there's no budget preparation going on?
No, that's in part of. Let's see here.
It's under the
Budget preparation and cost estimation is really close to the same. They didn't separate it out in some of the conversations we've had, but we could basically take that line and mirror it with the one below it.
What about the gather information and review? That has nothing.
Not so far.
Okay,
No.
all right, thank you.
Depends on how the process really goes.
You mean then, when you said gather information and review, where was that?
That was on the second tier down, number 5 on the under site investigation.
Site investigation, conceptual design will be a part of both of those.
Okay.
We're roughly, I'm gonna say, going by memory, 6 or 7 years in this process.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to condense something now very rapidly in a roughly 2-month period. Is that prudent?
One of the things is we're staff is utilizing as much of the information as we have already collected as possible. We do have some design that we're going to be able to use on the previous building as far as the programming or how the building is basically going to be laid out. We also have a lot of good information on the foundation. That was a heavy lift in regards to how the foundation is going to have to be built in the building, regardless of what location it's going to be in, whether it be at the current location, High Point or Highlands. And then the cost estimates that we have laid out are based on all of those sorts of things. So we were initial to get to a lot of these figures. The architectural cost was a little over $100,000 when I first got some of the quotes from this. And we were able to get them down to $47,000, and in large part because of all the information that we provided them from what we've already done. So a lot of those concepts, ideas, plans are moving forward with this also. So there is a savings.
We could push this to May of 22 if we wanted, or even November of 22. The risk in pushing it is that right now the bond rates are so favorable. So the hope would be that although this looks quite compressed, we have been through the 6 to 7 year process. And then the other piece of this from where we were a year ago to now is that now the property that we anticipated being built on is being donated to the city, so we're saving between $3 and $4 million that way. And so for the people that were in favorable of the location that we refer to as the high point, hopefully that they would see that, you know, through prudent decisions, we're trying to save the community $3 to $4 million, and are significantly simplifying the project because we don't have any of the eminent domain issues we would have to deal with that road vacation.
A couple other pieces of information. The phase 1 geotech work is approximately $11,000 on this new unit, which we do anticipate being more stable than the dune that's in front of it because of its age. It's older. Planning effort is about $20,000, not to exceed without prior authorization. And the architect work is just rounded up to about $47,000 to get their team to put together a plan for us. Now, if this goes over, of course, we would come to the council as we have that information. But as a backup, we also have again made sure that the planning category has an ample amount of money. And this year we put $75,000 into planning consultants and $20,000 into planning commission expense. But with this ask, I don't intend to touch any of that, getting us to August 13th and beyond with some of the planning of it. I'm not sure where we're going to end up with planning in regards to how difficult this land swap could be. But we'll be able to reassess that. Now, let's say that, and Peter, you can chime in here too. If we decide to go for a vote, some of the things that we would like to have prior to that is some sort of an agreement with the landowner that they are willing to donate. Today, we were able to provide the information on the survey information, the descriptions for the two pieces of property. So now the agreement can be better solidified between the city and the land developer. If we did go ahead and started down the path of going through the land swap process, we end up in November, and for some reason that people decided not to vote for the fire station bond, the outcome potentially could be that we would still receive the properties. One for being a park and one for future use, depending on what the city wanted to do.
Right, so I drafted the agreement, so it's not contingent upon city electors approving the bonds. So we would receive both parcels, and the hope would be that at some point in the future, that city electors would authorize the building of a fire station at that location. Or, you know, maybe at some point, there'll be state or federal money available. We just don't know. But we didn't want to make this swap contingent upon a voter passage because frankly, I didn't want to give people a reason, any additional reason to say, well, if we just oppose it, then we can keep the fire station in the place that it is. That practically is what will happen. It will remain in the place that it is, but the city will own the property, and then it will be able to be used for a public purpose. And then hopefully at some point there can be a decision.
Any chance, it might make it my acronyms wrong, but like DLCD or anybody else that's going to chime in on allowing this land swap to happen, or allowing the urban growth boundary to be extended and then the land swap, do you have any chance that will stumble and fall through?
The conversations that we've had with DLCD staff have been really positive. I think that they view Gerhardt, certainly on the North Coast, as a leader in tsunami preparedness. I mean, we're the first jurisdiction on the Northern Coast to pass the resiliency plan. And I think there's only perhaps one other. So they've been largely positive about this. Scott Friganese, who's the consultant, is doing a UGB expansion right now in Rockaway Beach, so not a swap, but rather an expansion. And so he's been working with DLCD staff extensively on that. So he already has those relationships and has been working through what is a more complex, and that's to locate all of their public facilities kind of up the hill and outside of the tsunami zone. So there are a lot of similarities between what he's doing with them now and what we're trying to do. So Oregon land use, you just never know. It's so incredibly complex, but the cards that we have right now are about as good as we could reasonably expect to get to yes.
We have had multiple meetings with them. We kept them in the loop, and they us. So the conversation is open.
And Carol has been keeping the county in the loop as well, because we need their cooperation. They seem to view this as a net positive as well.
What about the fact that potentially it's about 6 acres, right? 6 acres would not be you've spoken in the past about the swap needing to be R1 to R1. But then there will be this carve out of park and PSP.
Well, so both the park and the PSP they're conditional uses that are allowed in the R1 zone. And so I guess my hope would be, since the council wants to proceed forward with this, that then if we came to the council with the application for a conditional use, that the council would approve it.
Thank you.
What's the timeline for the agreement?
Is if we have the legal descriptions today, then we need to decide on the title company and it will be done.
So that's what we're waiting on is.
Right, so we're going to have we needed to have a survey work done for the 2 parcels, because the one of the parcel A will be, either the park or the fire station, parcel B, and that's how they're identified in the agreement, because there's not a property address. So we're going to use the tax lot number, and then we're going to use the surveys that show the 2 parcels, so that we have a meeting of the minds on exactly what they're giving up.
And the legal description.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens when?
Well, I've drafted the agreement. They reviewed the agreement. They didn't have any issue with any of what is in it. So as soon as I get the legal descriptions and get their preferred title company, then that's all I need.
Right, but the survey, when is that taking place? So you get the legal description?
After the agreement, the survey's been done on the entire piece of property. The legal description actually carves out these pieces in a way that is legally binding once it's in the agreement.
Mm-hmm. And who does the legal description?
CKI, Scott Cooter.
Oh, they're actually meeting.
Okay.
So it's already been done.
The legal description, yes, but Peter just got it this afternoon. I just received them today.
I drove away from my office before I got them. So I have not yet seen them. So it was welcome news to me that it's done and we can wrap this thing up.
So that would be next week?
Yeah, or tomorrow.
Or tomorrow? Okay, because I don't see any reason to go ahead if we don't have an agreement. That's my feeling. But if we've got an agreement, then I can go ahead and
So we may have jumped forward. We were on fire station timeline, so we may be kind of jumping forward in our agenda.
Well, I had something that we've been talking about for the last couple of months, and that was to do a preliminary pulse of the people somehow. Informal voting to see who would support the expense. And that seems to be really crucial and should be like number 1 on the list to get that
Yeah,
out of the way.
there is, the architecture group and the planning group are both keen on the public input portion of things. And so in order to start this process and make sure if we were to go for the November ballot, we have to get multiple things going at the same time.
Well, the architects are usually involved in the making it pretty and acceptable to the community, not would you pay for it.
These particular architects are also asking that question too. They've been through these community type issues before, and they're kind of a complete package, and they also have a resiliency expert that they're bringing along with them.
Okay, what's the name of the firm?
So far, if we choose them, and we're not there yet, is Pivot Architecture.
Okay.
But those are the people.
Not familiar with them, but there's a lot of architects.
Yeah, and then the public, portion of this is very important, and we do need to ask those questions. Now, whether or not we, look backwards onto High Point Station and what survey questions we can ask that, or we move forward with this and do a survey to try to get people's take on what's going on, but we need to better do a little bit more defining of what the whole thing looks like before we really get it out to public. And that shouldn't take long to at least get started and for us to understand better what we're going to do within a month. And then we can go out and do some, public campaign.
And when can we go take a look at the property ourselves? Can we just drive out there? I noticed that there was no trespassing sign up there once.
The developer of the property has said that any of the councilors, city staff can go up there anytime they like. And I'd be happy to go up there with you. I've shown a couple of folks here that location.
Okay.
So the community engagement on this timeline is June 28th to July 12th. And so have they described what that's going to be? Is that a survey? Is that a town hall?
We haven't chosen the group yet. They were helpful in us putting together the timeline, but that can also be driven by you, the council. You can direct city staff what you'd like to do. We will work through the groups that we have and make sure we do that together.
So none of the election neutrality rules will be in effect until August 9th. So there are no issues with advocacy. Again, I think that, there was broad support for the High Point location. This location offers savings of, $3 to $4 million, and it's actually closer to where the volunteers live. And so it should hopefully be easier for them to respond. I think as far as explaining the importance to the public, one is it's public safety, because we're at the ideal elevation at this location. The other piece of it too, though, is that this is a national trend that it's becoming harder and harder to recruit volunteer firefighters, particularly in places that are popular with people who have second homes, because the cost of workforce housing just the availability of workforce housing is making it so it's more difficult for people to find places to live that might be interested in volunteering. And one of the potential benefits of this fire station is that it could potentially have living quarters in it, so that our volunteers, so it might, and that's traditionally been part of fire stations and is allowed under our code. And so it might, in addition to allowing volunteers to be on site responding immediately, it could also provide some workforce housing, because we could have people that may, men or women that work at the golf course or work somewhere else who would also want to be volunteer firefighters, and then they would have a place to live. So they would be rent free, which might be attractive to volunteers going forward.
So you're talking about more than a dormitory while you're on shift?
Well, it would be traditional dormitory while you're on shift, but it might be that that's also their domicile, in that that they're either on shift or they're at their home, and their home is the fire station. And I don't know that that's what's going to happen. We don't know yet, but that seems to be the trend in volunteer firefighting. A lot of communities have had to go with full-time professional because it's becoming so difficult to recruit volunteers. So anything that we can do to make it more attractive for people to volunteer, that will be significant financial savings to the city.
Yeah, a lot of jurisdictions are going for housing for firefighters, policemen, teachers, and subsidizing the housing so they can afford to live in the community that they work in. So it's definitely possible to structure something like that.
On that 3 acres?
Potentially, the initial program that we put together had, I think, 4 separate small rooms, a public area for those rooms, and then shower and facilities. And that's a start. We'll still have more room down the line to potentially put another building if we wanted to, maybe a small one. We'll have people that are interested in getting their fire science degrees. We're doing now. We have a couple of students now that are working for us for their fire science degree, and that alone. And so that's working really well. We're doing everything we can that way. This will give us a lot of flexibility. And a lot of stations are going this way. For example, that one that was just down near Banks, they've got the same sort of scenario. And they even have firefighters that actually take shifts temporarily, 1 a month or something like that. And they're volunteers and they actually get paid for that sort of thing. So people are coming up with all sorts of different concepts. But this building should be inclusive and give us the opportunity to do those sorts of things.
I just don't see like whole families moving in because Dan wants to volunteer. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty
Yeah,
soon,
it's not necessarily going to work for everyone. It's probably going to work for, students that are pursuing that degree, or maybe other people likely that are single, because as the fire station is now, it's like a room, it's not a studio apartment, or it's a room with shared communal facilities. And again, that's why our buildable lands inventory housing needs analysis is so critically important, because what hasn't been getting built is that workforce housing. And I don't have to tell Councilor Jesse this, but the 2 biggest variables are traditionally have been the cost of the dirt and the SDCs. Recently, materials have spiked. The cost of materials has spiked. But part of how Oregon traditionally got workforce housing was developers getting land at a very attractive price, and then making a margin on it, which is how places like King City got built out. And right now, it's not affordable for developers to build workforce housing because the cost of the dirt is so high. And that will be until there's more dirt available.
We can, and back to other jurisdictions, like libraries have condominiumized the building so that they have separate ownership of the 2nd floor. So they do put condos on the 2nd floor. So anything is possible if we just get creative. Can I change and here? I appreciate your desire to be brief in the agreement, but I'm having a real difficulty understanding the terminology donor and beneficiary. For me, a donor is somebody takes the piece of property that they own and they deed it over, and here it is, and you have fun with it. There's no strings attached, there's no monetary compensation. That to me is a donation. This is a mutually beneficial relationship where the developer who owns it right now is gonna make a whole lot more money because of our actions. So it's mutually beneficial. So the city is not the sole beneficiary. And the donor really isn't donating anything. They're getting compensated. So,
Well, the problem, if we're talking about consideration, is that they may be getting compensated, but they're not being compensated by us. So we are agreeing to go through a process to move an imaginary line. And then they are then giving us 2 parcels of land in exchange for us going through a process. But if we're talking about, you know, consideration that exists because we're agreeing to take certain steps, but we're not a purchaser because we're not, I mean, because frankly, the urban growth boundary area has no value. I mean, in some respects, because the only entity that can move it is the city. So if the city quote unquote owns urban growth boundary, and again, we're talking about imaginary line, then we're the sole, we along with DLCD staff and anyone else that would need to participate in the approval are the only entity that can do anything with it. So for instance, a developer can't come in and say, I own this UGB that's here, and so I'm going to sell it to person X. Only the city can swap UGB. And so I struggled with because normally if I'm doing a land purchase agreement, it's the purchaser and the seller. But in this case, we're not purchasing it. I mean, they are giving it to us. And then the benefit that they are receiving is the city R1 zoning versus the county residential zoning, which means that they are giving up acres, and then if it all happens, they get some more lots. They're half the size of the lots that they would have given up in the past. So, you know, we got a question the last meeting of really what is the cost of the city and what are the benefits of the city of doing the deal. The cost of the city is, you know, $20,000 to go through the planning. The benefit to the city is a free parcel for a fire station, a free park. How does the developer net out when you consider that they're giving up a certain number of acres and then they're receiving a certain amount of lots that are smaller than the lots that they would have had previously? So it just becomes, I mean, I don't know. I understand your point of that. If you think about a gift, it's given out of disinterested affection. I mean, that's what the IRS says. And this doesn't feel, in some respects, this doesn't feel like a gift, because to receive the gift, we have to do something. Right. On the other hand, you know, a donation where you require them to name it after you, that, you know, I mean, it's not unusual that I think a donation would have some contingencies on it. So if you have a better term than donor, I'll definitely use it. I couldn't call it exactly what it was.
I would just call it developer and city.
Okay, I can certainly call it that.
Because if he goes to the IRS and says, gee, I've got this agreement that says I just made a $5 million or $500,000 donation to the city of Gerhardt, and they're trying to get a tax donation, the IRS, if they looked into it, probably wouldn't buy it, because it's not a donation. I think there is consideration. It's just our side of the transaction is going through the regulatory hoops.
Right. So I think that you know exactly how many lots you would have gotten prior to coming into the city, and whether he would have gone city water, because that's another thing that is a benefit to both the developer and to us. Like, we get to loop our water, so we get redundancy in the system, which is a benefit to us. He gets city water, which is a benefit to him. I think he could argue that under our comp plan, he could get extraterritorial water anyway. There are two sections that kind of are at odds, so you guys would have to decide whether to allow that or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is a mutually beneficial relationship.
Which brings me to another thing. A lot of real estate transactions that I've seen in the past have a fairly descriptive recital section at the introduction that explains both sides of the transaction, how it came to be, what those mutually beneficial things are. And that can be helpful down the road should there be legal disputes or anything that anybody looking at it can say, oh, this is how it came to be, and this is why they did it, because yeah, we get to loop our water and we get tax revenue and we get X, Y, and Z more affordable housing because they're smaller lots. The developer gets more housing. They get a nearby fire station, which is a benefit to them. They get a park, which is a benefit to them. So maybe putting in a recital section.
Yeah, I mean, I can put in a series of whereas sections. You know, in Oregon, they don't have any legal effect. So
yeah,
we're like setting the table, but as far as like it being deal terms, then, you know.
Right, they're not deal terms, but they are descriptive of the transaction and how it came to be and why the parties.
Right, and so traditionally when I draft agreements, I try to make them as simple and easy for people to understand as possible, because, you know, I reviewed the 20 and 30 page, and the more language you have in there, the more opportunity you have to be internally inconsistent or to have terms that are in conflict. And the harder it becomes for anyone reviewing them, they catch those errors. So my approach has been to put what needs to be put in there and not a lot of extra. But I can understand, given the unique nature of this transaction, how it would be probably nice to set the table a little bit and explain how this is mutually beneficial. As far as what the value actually is to the developer and what the value is to us, I don't know. I mean, I know what the value of buying the only alternative would be, or we have a pretty good idea that would be between 3 and 4 plus litigation. So, and an uncertain outcome, whereas this one offers a certainty and a donation, but I don't really know what the developer, if what they're giving up and they're receiving, what that would look like as far as the benefit versus burden.
Well, I don't think we need to go into great detail, but just the fact that they're able to create more dense housing, increase their production revenue, not specify how much. I'm sure that's why they're doing it. That's why they requested it. I don't know if they could argue if we put something general like that in the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly put that in the agreement. I am very grateful actually to them for being willing to do the deal. I think that they've been very easy to work with, and you know, whether or not their motive is primarily profit driven or they also want to see Garrett thrive. I mean, they are deeding the city property. And I appreciate the fact that they're willing to do that. So that's the other thing that I would say is that this might be in their financial benefit. It probably is, but it's certainly in ours, because whether or not voters authorize a fire station we have a future site that it could go to, and then we have a park that certainly would be a benefit to the city. And so, yeah, so I think that I'm happy that this seems like it can move forward.
I don't believe the economic benefit to them is as grand as many might believe it to be. When you look at, if they, just to make the math simpler, I suppose, we could say they're doubling their lot capacity, which they aren't because they're giving up the acreage to us, but you know, of course, they have every lot they develop, they have all, you know, additional costs. Right. Substantial cost to develop each lot, you know, with underground infrastructure and that sort of thing. They will start with a cost associated with the project. That's a burden. Then they have to bring it to market and try to sell it and hope that they can recoup their costs before the economy turns. And
oh, sure, yeah, they've got risks.
They've got a lot of risks. So this, you know, we may end up with a great piece of property and the development may, well, we don't know.
Right. I mean, there are people that say we're in bubble right now, you know, nobody knows, but we all know what the last one looks like when it popped. And yeah.
Anybody has that crystal ball, I'd like to see.
Can we just talk about the lot size one more time? So right now it's 1 acre.
So it's 20,000 square feet in the county zoning that they're in now. They're actually surrounded by urbanized land. The fact that this didn't make it into the urban growth boundary, considering that the development to the north of them had already happened, is kind of puzzling, but it didn't. So my understanding is under the county zoning that they're in now, and I had actually reviewed their preliminary, they had turned in their preliminary stuff to Carol a year ago with the 20,000 square foot lots. Yeah. So it's 20,000 square foot lots, and obviously there's some riparian areas, there's some other challenges. But so with this, they're giving up the land for the fire station, the land for the park, and then the remaining portion of the property would be the R1, which is 10,000 square foot lots. So it is going to be, is it 1.5, around maybe just under 1.5 times the number of lots? The SDCs are going to be the SDCs that happens on a per lot basis, regardless of square feet. The building costs are going to be the building costs, whether they end up with a smaller house because it's on a smaller lot or not, I don't know. That's all market demand driven. We get to loop the water and they get the water. So that's kind of a benefit to both. But yeah, again, you know, they may end up winning because of this too, but we certainly would be winning because we're getting something for, I mean, to get acres of land for, if we get through the process, 20,000, that's something that doesn't happen very often.
So if the lots are 10,000 square feet, how many homes do they project to build on there, that land?
I think it was between 45 and 49.
That many?
Somewhere in there.
Oh, okay.
It's something like 36 acres before you cut off ours. But some of it's riparian, some of it's slopes.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, there's some.
Good portion of it will be roadways.
Yeah.
And they'll be responsible for putting in the roadways as per our conditions. They'll be responsible for installing the plumbing, the water mains, as we go up and be built. And then another benefit to the community is a potential walkthrough into a larger loop around, you know, the outside of Deer Heart and back in, depending on how that future growth goes. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it's pretty interesting. And as Peter has said in the past, it seems like with the cost savings, with the opportunity, you know, it's kind of a three-way win. One for the taxpayers, you know, one for the city and fire station, and then one also for the folks that are developing this land. It's not very often I think we get a chance to make a deal where everybody's happy.
for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, because we're going through the Parks Master Plan at the same time, it's just kind of, the timing is, works out in a lot of different ways.
Any other questions about the draft timeline? All right.
What, how much of a kink in the system would it be if it was delayed 1 to 2 weeks? In other words, can the timeline be compressed before 8/2?
Potentially, we'll know a lot more once we know that that we have the funds available, but there's maybe a couple weeks might be a lot, but there is a little bit of wiggle room in there already. And as you see, some of the planning is a little bit longer than it needs to be, so I think I've done my best to try to build in some rooms for either a mistake or something unforeseen.
And we have until late in September to pull it from the ballot if we were to decide to do that. We have to make the decision. The reason we have to have it in by that date is because if someone were to challenge the ballot title, which is not unheard of to happen in your heart, then we would need enough time to get through court. But we also have some time before they print the ballots and mail them to voters in order to withdraw if we had information that made us think that that's what we should do. So we have a little bit of flexibility on the when to make a final decision. I've never had to pull one from the, I've never pulled one from the ballot before, but there's a way you can do it. We don't have much flexibility on the when does that have to be in the county, and that's actually now set by the Secretary of State. It used to be a recommendation, and now they actually set the date, so.
But it's somewhere, I think, around the end of September that we would have to withdraw.
Correct, we have to do it before that date is based on when the ballots are printed in mail to members of the military that are abroad. Those are the first ballots to get mailed, so it's not like it's a week before the election, it's more like 5 or 6 weeks.
I think that going through the parks plan this year, we used a model planning document, and it had a community engagement piece, a survey instrument, pretty far down in the sequence, in the timeline. And I asked, could we move that forward? And we ended up doing that. We spent maybe more time than we needed to, because I think we had the surveys out for at least a month and maybe 6 weeks. And I thought having the information before we got to the point we are now, where we're actually writing our policy recommendations. And it's the committee that's doing that, I'm not really doing that part. But it was so validating for everybody on the committee to get that feedback from the community about what their priorities were. It was validating because it was what the committee was also interested in. It mirrored it. And that has really helped that group move forward, I think, with confidence. So, and we got 400 responses. So I feel like it would be worthwhile to do something Peter, you just lined out so many of the advantages. I mean, I could practically verbatim do a fact sheet and have, I don't know, 4 to 10 survey questions, whatever the group thinks is really valuable. I mean, the bottom line being, do you think this is like a good move, and could you support a November ballot of approximately blank, blank, blank? And I think that would hugely our confidence that this moving forward now is the right thing. would like nothing more than to be on the ballot in November. Because I don't know, just like all of us, we don't know how long this bubble will last, how long it will be favorable. But it seems like after 6 or 7 years, with all of those things, it feels like it's in alignment. But that one piece, I think, would give us more confidence.
Well, I can sense that kind of all the reasons that it's a kind of a win for the community. I think that maybe our fire folks could play a role too in explaining some of the challenges with recruiting volunteers and also just, I mean, the primary benefit is the public safety, just that we no longer have a fire station in the lowest portion of the city, we have it in the highest, and so anything other than XL, that location's in good shape, and in this location, not so much.
And I think that also as we start this process, we're going to have a larger team of people to pull some information from also. So from what I'm getting from you and likely the council is that as soon as possible, get the public engagement portion started, rolling survey in the first part of this process rather than the third part.
Yeah. I'd like to be involved. I just, I found the last one a little one-sided. You know, I'd like to, I mean, obviously $4 million savings is just a selling point in itself, but you know, we were directed to go to 5 points, so.
You want to be involved in, can you be more specific?
Writing?
Looking at the survey itself.
Yes.
And then trying to.
The survey questions. and
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the survey construction.
But that's,
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to be involved in that as well.
Should we have a work session? I mean, I'm happy if you guys want to volunteer to do it.
Maybe that will be good for the council just to have a work session so we can all talk through this. Because I think that the messaging is really important. It's very important for people to understand it. And we've had a very robust public process over the last 7 years, but we're having less public participation recently than we have had previously. And, you know, I think that they're probably, you know, obviously there's newspaper stories and there are a variety of ways for people to get their information, but maybe advertising a work session on this and saying we're really going to get into more of the details of benefits and challenges would be good.
Can report our status on the work session that's coming up on the 29th. At the end of this month also. So we have the opportunity to do some more work between now and then. We have some more information.
Yeah, we kind of have agenda items for that, but.
It's busy.
Okay. I mean, I for one think this is worth the time, whatever it takes to have meetings and get that word out.
I would hate to have gone as far as we've gone and then kind of stumble at the end of this. And I think again, like if we're looking at sites and all the legal complications associated with other options, the problem is that we've spent a lot of time looking at it, so we're aware of them. And sometimes when that happens, then you just assume that everyone else kind of was on that journey, and that's not necessarily the case. So it might be helpful to have some folks that have been less involved look at it too and make sure that it's easy to understand and they can understand kind of how the council has arrived at the decision to move forward.
Are there any other comments on the timeline itself? I'm gonna move on then to, this is the request for funds for the Highlands Lane Fire Police Station relocation investigation and due diligence. I don't know how redundant this is, but Chad, why don't you go through the synopsis?
Sure, we have to, for the benefit of you and the people that are listening. So the fire station replacement, possible relocation project of priority of the city council's goals was a new potential site near Highlands Lane has been presented to staff as a site for a police fire station project. Staff is requesting up to $80,000 from the building reserve fund. The reserve fund money will enable city staff to provide the residents, planning commission, and city council with the information needed to decide whether or not to move forward with pursuing a bond in the November 2021 election. The funds will be used for the following three things. A planning group to assist in general planning services is requested by the city planner and the city attorney, and assist the city working through a UGB swap, including coordination with the city, county, and Department of Land Conservation and Development. Second phase is an architect firm to develop project requirements, site investigations, conceptual design, not full design, but conceptual design, community engagement, and budget preparation. Full design would be something that would come after a bond issuance. That's where we would need those funds from. It's quite expensive. Third thing would be geotechnical engineering services to provide a preliminary review of geological information, subsurface explorations, laboratory testing, engineering analysis, and preparation of geothermal report. Geotechnical, excuse me, I don't know if there's much geothermal in this location. So, you know, some of these services might require a bid process, excuse me. And, you know, Peter and I will be working that out. We'll involve the council throughout this process. So the options that we have is to allocate the 80,000 for the pre-bond investigation, allocate a different amount, or table or do nothing. We do recommend the motion to approve the request of 80,000 from the building reserve fund. So financial analysis on this is the building reserve fund currently has 122,000 and is anticipated to receive another 100,000 in funds in the next fiscal budget. That's something that we're looking at potentially allocating some funds from the CARES Act. So we believe this will be a good way to spend those funds. We think that we've done a lot of work with these individual companies to try to, well, with some companies to try to get this down as tight as possible without wasting any money. And we think that this is the minimum amount needed to really get some good information. Any questions, Councilor Hurst?
I have a question. So the architect is going to do the conceptual design and budget preparation. Does that go out for bid?
Yes.
Okay.
So there have been a number of architects that are interested in this
Are they fire station architects?
that have experience with fire stations. Though, you know, obviously we would encourage anyone to bid, and based on those conversations, we think this is a reasonable budget. We are going to evaluate it like we would any other bids for professional services in the work. So I mean, we don't know exactly who's going to come in or not. We have a decent idea, but you're always surprised.
Right, well, thank you, makes sense.
Is the city bearing the full cost of the planning to get the UGB swap completed, or are the developers carrying some of that burden other than their attorney?
The way we're looking at now is that the planning would be the city pay for moving down forward as things longer term, depending on the terms, and then we can discuss that then. But this initial plan would be all on the city.
And the reason that the reason that we've structured it in that manner, and the reason that we brought in a Scott Ferganisi, in addition to his expertise in this area, is that we need a clean process. We do not want to make it appear that if you were to look at an aerial map of your art, which I have, and you were to look at the areas that are in the UGB and then the areas that are adjacent, it seems very likely that someone doing that exercise would come up with this parcel, because the amount of road infrastructure to go up the hill, because that area is kind of marshland, will liquefy. It would almost have to be like a Louisiana style raised road bridge. It just becomes cost prohibitive with almost any other option. There's some undeveloped stuff that's inside the UGB, but you know, that's not their wetlands and other issues associated with that as well. So although we expect that a likely outcome based on the topography, and DLCD kind of had the same thought. They were like, well, it needs to be a full, and then they were looking at our area, I'm like, there really aren't many. They really aren't, but we need it to be a completely clean and transparent process. And if the developer were to participate in paying for those services, it might seem like there had been some sort of predetermined outcome that it's that parcel that should come into the UGB. And it's not, I mean, we have very unique topography and a unique map. So everyone, state staff, Carol, Chad, myself, we all think this is likely the outcome, but we can't say for sure.
Okay. So it's the LCD board.
The DLCD staff. So it is the, we'd be working with Meg in part because it's a resiliency issue. And they're looking to see whether maybe this could be a model for other jurisdictions on the coast and how to do it. And then as well as the DLCD staff member who works on the coast. And then actually a staff member that does kind of urbanization projects as well. He has been in our phone calls and has been really helpful in kind of talking through some of these issues. So it will be those three staffers at the very least.
You can.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for $80,000 from the Building Reserve Fund to complete this pre-bond investigation and due diligence project for the new proposed fire station location.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by Dan and Rita has seconded that. Is there discussion? Let's just go around the room.
Oh. I think it's a no-brainer.
I'm good.
No,
Okay, it sounds like we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The last item on our agenda is a request for hazard mitigation funds for backup batteries. Chad, I hand that over to you again.
Thank you. Susan, we've been working, Sharon Clougher is a volunteer on the CERT teams as well, of course, on the planning commission. And recently she's been having some difficulty in connecting with our repeater station that we have up on the reservoir side, 165 feet in elevation behind us on Solomon Lane. We found that the batteries that were installed by volunteers, it was a volunteer ham group, weren't brand new at the time. There were no expense to the city of Deerheart. They actually provided them, but they have since gone bad. So with Sharon's help, we brought together a group of people, again, another kind of volunteer group, and a few of them actually local folks that are experts in, or at least, you know, very good at this sort of work. And they're recommending to us to buy these types of batteries to provide a couple of weeks of power to our ham radio repeater station up above. And that really is phase one of the project. Phase two, with Sharon's help and volunteers, we're going to look at an alternative power source also to maintain these batteries, as well as short power, regular power. And we're going to be doing some other things to upgrade that ham shaft. But this $3,000 is requested, would be for the new batteries and some of the supplies needed to install it. And city staff and Sharon, of course, highly recommends that we move forward with this.
So how many batteries are we talking about?
I can't remember. I can't remember if it was 6 or 9, and they're set up in a series, is how it works.
So you said these batteries were only good for a few weeks, is that what you said?
Of worth of power, yes.
Oh, okay.
So they will, if the power completely shuts off up there, we should have at least a week, I've heard a couple of weeks, depending on how we set it up. But again, long-term, we'd like to look at potential, for either a generator of some sort, propane or solar panel or what have you. But I reached out to a few people that can help us with that. But this project is just the battery.
Okay.
So beyond that, there may be solar or something else. So basically, we have electrical power
Correct.
as long as the electricity is on. This is strictly our backup system, and we're looking at a second backup at some point in the future.
Right.
Any idea what kind of batteries? Where they're coming from?
I'm sorry, I can't remember the gentleman, but they, the person who's done this has military experience and this sort of thing, and is somewhat of an engineer in regards to all of this, so they have some recommendation of batteries. We haven't exactly spec'd them out, but we've got the basis for the price.
Sharon, are you still on the call? Sharon Crawford?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Do you have any specs at all on those batteries?
What? I don't have a lot of facts. They're called Odyssey, and they're sold by Ed Hauer up in Astoria. They're a different kind of battery than what's up there now, but the reason they recommend these is because these are the type of batteries that are going into all the other repeater stations, and they'd like it to be, coherent and contiguous with the other repeater stations. And Chad, it's 6 batteries that we need. The life of the batteries is approximately 10 years.
Thank you very much.
So they're Odysseys, they're sealed batteries.
That was a requirement because they're going to be within the room with the equipment. And they will also be in another box as well.
So it's a 12 volt, 6 batteries gives you 12 volts. You're using the same charge controllers, I'm assuming that we're charging the old batteries.
I'm not sure.
Any other questions, discussion, a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the request for $3,000 from the Hazard Mitigation Fund for the purchase of ham radio replacement batteries.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We ready to adjourn the meeting? I'll take a motion.
I move we adjourn the special council meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Chad? Hey, Chad?
Well, I tell you that.
They were gonna-
No,
I just-
When this came out, I think
Here we go.
What was that?
Sorry, it got so loud, and the council chambers accidentally got muted. Did you guys end the meeting?
Yes, we did.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure nobody can learn stuff.